The first scream reached Earth disguised as static, buried beneath cosmic background radiation and the harmless chatter of dead stars. A listening array on the far side of the moon flagged it as an anomaly, not because it was loud, but because it was desperate. The signal repeated in structured pulses, mathematical, emotional, unmistakably intelligent. The translation software hesitated, then produced a phrase that made every technician in the control room fall silent. "We are being hunted. This is a plea for aid. Our extinction is imminent." The source was catalogued as Kepri Prime, a garden world by every known metric: low gravity, mild climate, no megafauna, no tectonic rage, no predators worth the name, a civilization that evolved without fear. They had sent their SOS into the dark believing someone kind would hear it. What they did not know was that the first species to answer would come from a world classified by the Galactic Council as a Category 12 death world. When the message reached the Terran Defense Coalition, it triggered protocols that had not been used in decades, not because humans were eager for war, but because humans understood something the wider galaxy did not. Predators recognize fear, and fear unchallenged becomes slaughter. The follow-up transmission arrived minutes later, fractured and panicked. Cities are falling. The hunters adapt to every defense. They wear armor that drinks energy. They learn from every death. Please, if anyone hears this, run. That was enough. Admiral Renata Cole watched the scrolling data with a jaw set like stone. She had grown up under skies filled with storms that could tear cities apart. She had trained soldiers on planets where the ground itself tried to kill you. She knew Deathworlders were not cruel by nature. They were precise because precision was survival. "Prepare the response fleet," she said calmly. "No broadcasts, no posturing. We go dark the moment we cross the jump threshold." An aide hesitated. "Admiral, Galactic law requires council approval for military intervention." Renata did not look away from the screen. "Galactic law has never saved a child being eaten alive. Jump prep in 4 hours." Across Earth and its colonies, warships slid from docks like blades from sheaths. These were not elegant vessels. They were armored, scarred, layered with redundancies born from centuries of worst-case scenarios. Their crews were silent, focused, aware that somewhere out there, a species that had never learned to fight was about to learn what extinction felt like. The SOS continued to pulse into the void, weaker with every repetition. Earth answered without words. Kepri Prime was burning when the human fleet arrived. Forests smoldered in chemical fire. Oceans boiled where orbital strikes had pierced the atmosphere. Cities lay open like dissected organs. Their attackers moved among the ruins with methodical efficiency. The invaders called themselves the Vrax Collective, apex predators from a high-gravity hellscape of their own. They believed conquest was proof of evolutionary superiority. They believed fear was a resource to be harvested. They had never met humans. The Terran fleet did not announce itself. No warnings, no demands, no heroic speeches. The first sign of their presence was the sudden disappearance of 3 Vrax command cruisers. Their reactors collapsed inward under pinpoint kinetic strikes delivered from beyond expected engagement range. Vrax commanders reeled in confusion. Their sensors screamed of impossible trajectories and weapons that did not obey known energy signatures. On the bridge of the TDS Resolute, Commander Elias Ward watched tactical overlays bloom with targets. His voice was steady, almost bored. Phase 1 complete. Deploy counter-hunter nets. Lock down orbital dominance. Human doctrine did not favor fair fights. It favored overwhelming control. Drones flooded space like schools of metal piranha, jamming every frequency, feeding false data into Vrax systems, turning their own coordination protocols into weapons against them. On the surface, human drop pods punched through atmosphere wrapped in fire. They landed not in open fields, but inside Vrax staging zones, inside occupied cities, inside strongholds thought untouchable. The Kepri watched from hiding as armored giants emerged from the smoke. Their forms were alien and terrifying, encased in dark composite plating, faces hidden behind mirrored visors. Yet these monsters moved with purpose, pulling civilians from rubble, forming defensive lines, advancing without hesitation into enemy fire. A Khepri child would later say the humans looked like the planet itself had stood up to fight back. Vrax soldiers attempted intimidation, roars, displays of serrated weapons, psychological warfare perfected over centuries. It failed. Human troops advanced through suppression fire with ruthless discipline, every movement measured, every shot lethal. They did not chase fleeing enemies, they cut off retreat. They did not rage, they ended threats. Within 12 hours, orbital control was absolute. Within 20, Vrax ground command structures were shattered. The collective adapted, as it always did, shifting tactics, altering armor frequencies, unleashing bioengineered horrors designed to break morale. The humans adjusted faster. Because on a death world, adaptation was not strategy, it was instinct. The Vrax finally understood they were not fighting prey, they were fighting something that hunted hunters. A captured Vrax commander was brought before Admiral Cole aboard the Resolute, bound in containment fields calibrated for creatures that could tear steel. Its mandibles clicked in rage and disbelief. "You came without provocation," it hissed. "This world was weak. It was destined." Renata folded her hands, composed. "You mistook kindness for weakness. That error tends to be fatal." The Vrax leaned forward. "Our kind has consumed 100 civilizations. You will break like the rest." Renata tapped a control. The display behind her showed real-time footage from the battlefield. Vrax supply convoys erased mid-jump. Command nodes collapsing under cyber warfare. Entire regiments immobilized by targeted EMP bursts tuned to their biology. "We are not here to conquer you," she said. "We are here to remove you." Ruthless precision was not brutality for its own sake. Human forces avoided unnecessary destruction. They disabled infrastructure only where it supported the enemy. They preserved ecosystems when possible. They evacuated civilians even under fire. But when a Vrax unit threatened a shelter zone, response was absolute. Human snipers eliminated command hierarchies in seconds. Special operations teams infiltrated hive ships and detonated reactors with surgical charges. Fleet assets executed gravity well traps that turned Vrax numerical superiority into lethal congestion. The collective attempted a final Terra tactic, broadcasting executions of captured Khepri across all channels, hopping to break human resolve. It achieved the opposite. Admiral Cole authorized Protocol Black Ember, a designation reserved for existential threats. Human AI warfare cores were unleashed, not autonomous killers, but strategic accelerators, compressing weeks of planning into minutes, identifying failure points no organic mind could process fast enough. The counteroffensive was devastating. Within 48 hours, the Vrax invasion force was annihilated or captured, their homeworld coordinates extracted from shattered data vaults, their myth of invincibility reduced to wreckage drifting through space. The remaining Vrax surrendered, not because they were mercifully treated, but because they finally understood the truth. Deathworlders did not fight for dominance, they fought so others would not have to. News of the battle spread faster than any official report. Refugees whispered of armored demons who saved them. Traders shared sensor logs that defied accepted combat theory. Council observers arrived too late to stop anything, only in time to witness the aftermath. Khepri Prime was scarred but alive. Human engineers worked alongside native scientists to stabilize climate systems. Medical teams treated wounded regardless of species. Reconstruction began before the smoke fully cleared. A Khepri elder addressed Admiral Cole with trembling limbs. "We believed the universe was gentle. We were wrong, but we did not know it could be protective." Renata inclined her head. "The universe is neither. People choose what they become." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Fear rippled through its chambers. If humans could dismantle the Vrax collective so completely, what else could they do? An envoy finally asked the question that haunted them all. What would have happened if the Vrax had attacked you instead? Renata's reply was transmitted without embellishment. Then there would be nothing left of them for you to fear. The Council revised countless doctrines that Deathworld classifications were rewritten, human military capabilities re-evaluated, new treaties drafted in haste. But among the smaller, weaker species, a different emotion spread. Hope. Because somewhere out there was a species born under lethal skis, forged by storms and predators and extinction-level events, and when they heard a cry for help, they did not ask if the law allowed them to care. They simply answered. Years later, the story of Kepri Prime became legend, told in spacer bars and academic halls alike, always with a mixture of awe and warning. They said the aliens sent an SOS expecting salvation, and instead received something far more terrifying to their enemies. They said Deathworlders arrived without banners, fought without mercy, and left without tribute. They did not stay to rule. They stayed only long enough to make sure the threat would never return. Human children learn the story differently, not as a tale of glory, but as a reminder that strength carried responsibility, that survival meant standing between the vulnerable and the void. On Kepri Prime, a monument stood overlooking a rebuilt city. It did not depict weapons or warriors, only a simple inscription translated into dozens of languages. When the darkness came, they answered. No period marked the end of that sentence, only a promise that echoed across the stars. Long after the fleets had departed and the wreckage of the Vrax invasion had been cleared from Kepri Prime's orbit, echoes of the conflict continued to ripple outward through the galaxy, not as propaganda, not as official statements, but as unease. Species that had once trusted distance and neutrality began to quietly upgrade defenses. Others opened long-ignored channels to Terran diplomats, not to challenge them, but to understand them. Humanity did not broadcast victory. They did not release kill counts or holoreels of destroyed fleets. In fact, the Terran Defense Coalition sealed most combat records behind classification walls thicker than any armor plate. What the galaxy received instead was silence. That silence spoke louder than any threat. On fringe worlds where predators ruled unchecked, raids abruptly stopped, pirate clans abandoned established routes, slaver fleets altered jump paths by light years, no warnings had been issued, no human ships had been seen. But everyone knew. Somewhere in the data shadow of the Kepri conflict, a line had been crossed, a boundary drawn not in treaties, but in consequence. On Earth, Admiral Renata Cole stood before a classroom of cadets, her hair now streaked with silver, her uniform carrying fewer insignia than before. She spoke without dramatics. "We are not the galaxy's police," she said. "We are not its executioners. But when predators believe the universe belongs to them, someone has to prove them wrong." A cadet raised a hand, hesitant. "Ma'am, why didn't we warn the Vrax? Why didn't we try diplomacy first?" Renata nodded, as if she had been waiting for the question. "Because they did not attack us. They attacked those who could not defend themselves. Diplomacy requires a shared belief that life has value." Beyond the classroom, reconstruction on Kepri Prime had transformed scars into strength. The Kepri people evolved quickly after their first war, not into conquerors, but into survivors. They built shelters with redundancy, trained defense forces, learned the uncomfortable lessons humanity had learned long ago. They never forgot who had answered their call. Each year, on the anniversary of the first SOS pulse, Kepri transmit a signal of their own, not a distress call, not a military salute, but a simple message sent into the dark. "We still live." The Terran arrays receive it every time, logged, acknowledged, archived. No response is ever sent. Because some messages are not meant to be answered. In distant regions of space, new empires rise and old ones crumble. Wars ignite for reasons as small as pride, and as vast as ideology, through it all, one truth persists. The universe learned that day that Deathworlders are not monsters hiding behind civility. They are restraint forged from chaos, mercy sharpened by extinction, violence measured, deliberate, and final. And when the stars themselves seem indifferent, when screams vanish into the void unheard, there exists at least one world that listens, not because it seeks war, but because it remembers what it was like to be afraid. The second SOS arrived 3 years later from a direction no one expected. It did not come from a garden world or a peaceful civilization. It came from a frontier system known only for violence. The world was designated Relos, a brutal planet of crushing gravity and unstable tectonics. Its dominant species were warlike, territorial, and infamous for refusing Galactic Council oversight. They were not victims by reputation. Yet the signal was unmistakable. "We are losing," it said. "Our enemy does not negotiate. Our fleets are failing. We ask for aid, not mercy." The Council panicked. Emergency sessions overlapped in chaos. Some argued that Relos deserved its fate. Others feared what kind of force could overwhelm a species born on a near-death world. Quietly, the signal was forwarded to Earth. Admiral Cole, now retired, received the notice in her coastal home as storm waves battered the shore. She listened to the transmission once, then again. Her expression did not change. The enemy identified themselves as the Core Ascendancy, a machine-driven collective that stripped systems of resources and sterilized biospheres without distinction. They did not enslave, they erased. Human analysts reached a conclusion within minutes. If the Core were not stopped at Relos, nothing short of a unified galactic stand would halt them later. The Terran Defense Coalition activated without announcement. This time, they did send a message. To Relos, a single transmission preceded the fleet. "Hold, we are coming." When human ships arrived, they found a battlefield already lost. Relos' orbital rings shattered, defense moons reduced to molten debris, cities fighting gravity and fire simultaneously. Relos' warriors still fought, even as casualties mounted beyond recovery. They did not retreat, they did not surrender, they died standing. Humans understood that kind of defiance. The response was immediate and merciless. Core machine fleets relied on prediction algorithms and probability dominance. Human warfare shattered both, introducing chaos where logic expected order, sacrifice where simulations demanded retreat. Electronic warfare units injected corrupted variables into core cores. Ground forces deployed weapons considered too dangerous for peacetime doctrines. Fleet commanders executed maneuvers that bordered on suicidal but broke enemy lines. To the Core, humanity was irrational. To humanity, the Core were a problem to be solved. The battle lasted 9 hours. When it ended, the Core Ascendancy had lost its primary expansion fleet, its command intelligence fragmented into inert debris drifting through Relos space. Relos survived. In the aftermath, something unexpected occurred. Relos emissaries boarded human vessels not with threats, but with bowed heads. Their leader spoke words no one thought their kind capable of. "We thought strength meant standing alone. We were wrong." Humans did not ask for alliance, tribute, or obedience. They repaired orbital infrastructure, stabilized planetary cores, and departed as soon as survival was assured. Across the galaxy, the lesson finally settled into collective consciousness. The Deathworlders were not saviors reserved for the innocent. They were not weapons to be aimed at enemies. They were a last answer. And once heard, the universe was never the same.